Kill that.
Can I start now?
No, not yet.
No, no,
Great, fantastic. Welcome everyone to 1 Million Cups Fairfax chapter. We're so glad that you can join us this morning. Please take a moment to check in to our app. If you don't have an app, please take a moment to download from the App Store. This helps us to know that you're here and allows us to grow as a community. And also take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat feature of the chat box. Next slide. All right, so there are three key pillars that we believe in 1 Million Cups. They are entrepreneurship, community, and education. And if you're excited about those three things, you're in the right place. Next slide. The mission of 1 Million Cups is very simple. It is come together as entrepreneurs and as a community to help each other grow and overcome some of the business challenges that we face as business owners. Next slide. The way we run our meetings is very different than some of the other ones that you may have attended. We focus on presentation, and it's not a pitch to sell or to offer services. We focus on authentic connections, not networking. And we are run by the volunteers in the community and for the community. Next slide. So this is a slide about our culture. Our goal is to create a safe and supportive environment where everyone feels safe and welcomed, and different ideas are shared without fear of being, being rejected. And we're an all volunteer-led community. And we need everyone to support, whether you're an organizer or a presenter or attendee, we need everyone's participation. Next slide. All right, so we are the Fairfax chapter. There are over 160 chapters, just like this one. Oh, can you go back? Yep. Across the nation that meet every Wednesday morning in their respective times. And it's a weekly event that brings together entrepreneurs and business owners, and we talk about solving business challenges over a cup of coffee. And our goal is to create a supportive environment where everyone feels welcomed, and we want to create an environment that's inclusive and diverse, and everyone has a voice, and not one person dominates, and we are respectful and considerate to one another. Next slide. All right, so we want to welcome you again, and that you can be part of our community. And as a community, there are many ways you can help grow. First is to attend meetings every week, which you are doing, and I thank you. Second is to participate in the conversation, to provide feedback in the presentation segment later in the meeting, and engage with us online, share our content on social media, and help us to get the word out to everybody that you among your friends and family. And finally, invite your friends and colleagues that will help us to also grow the community. All right, next slide. All right, so these beautiful faces that you see in front of you are the Fairfax chapter organizers. If you take a moment, please, and give us, support us by a virtual clap, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Next slide. All right, so at this time, I'd like to recognize our sponsors. We have two sponsors. First sponsor is a space sponsor, and second sponsor is a monthly coffee sponsor. Even though we meet virtually, we still like to recognize our sponsors. So first is our space sponsor, which is Office Evolution. And we have Sylvia Ferguson from Office Evolution to tell us a little bit about Office Evolution. Sylvia.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sylvia Ferguson, and I'm the Business Center Manager of Office Evolution Tyson's Corner. Here at Office Evolution, we have beautiful private offices, conference rooms, co-working, virtual services. So if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur and need a really great place to work and get some good work done, reach out to me or John, and we would love to give you more information. So I will put all the information in the chat. So again, thank you so much. And my name is Sylvia.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Second is our coffee sponsor for the month. And we have Renetta from Extraordinary Solutions. Renetta, could you tell us a little bit about your business?
Good morning, everyone. I am the founder of Extraordinary Solutions, and our mission is to help women of the military community bridge the gaps that are missing in their businesses. In order for them to be successful, we focus on helping them strategically design and create processes that allow them to be streamlined and for the services that they provide for customers. As we are excited to be focusing on podcasting right now and also one-on-one services.
All right, thank you, Renetta. Next slide. Right, so let me walk you through how our virtual meetings work. Before we have our presenter speak today, these are some of the ground rules for our virtual meeting. First, I'd like to ask everyone to please keep your microphone on mute during the presentation. And after the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to provide feedback on the presenter's business challenge and or ask questions. And our moderator today will be, I believe John's here. Who's the moderator for today? John?
I think Myosha is.
Okay, Myosha. So Myosha will be moderating the Q&A session for our meeting, and she will help facilitate the discussion. So next slide. So today we have a presenter from West Coast. Her name is Jen Appy from Milestonia. Jen, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you so much for having me here today. And thank you to so many members of the community who have helped me so far. Great to see Renetta and Tony and Lily. And I'm looking forward to meeting Rosemary later today. I signed up for your webinar so I can learn more about your business. So I feel like I'm part of the Fairfax community already. So thank you for being so welcoming and supportive. We're here today to ask, who would be interested in our story and why, and how do we reach them? I think that with the diversity of the 1 Million Cups community, getting your perspective, everybody's perspective on this question would be really, really helpful. So thank you. Next slide. So I'm Jen Appy. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Milestonia. And we started Milestonia because we really wanted to help small businesses like ourselves to succeed. We understand the struggles of a small business, the limited time, limited resources, and the great amount of what needs to be accomplished in a small business. And we initially developed Milestonia for ourselves. Next slide. We were trying to find a way to keep everybody aligned and motivated and productive. Sometimes, as you know, in a small business, everybody is moving 1,000 miles an hour, and sometimes it's hard to keep everybody on track. So we tried with various tools and finally decided that we needed something that was simpler, something that was would give us one place, one single source of truth without having to put a lot of work into it every week. And we really wanted something that was fun. We wanted something that really brought the team together and created camaraderie. So with that, we created Milestonia. And then we realized that because we were a virtual team and we had developed this, this tool to help ourselves be a virtual team, when COVID hit and so many companies had to go virtual, we realized that we had a tool that could help other companies as well. Our transition to remote work was seamless because we're already doing it, and B, we had a way to keep us together culturally. So we were also stunned by these statistics that only 31% of employees were engaged at work, meaning that 69% were not, and that only 90% of companies did not achieve their goals. And we felt that with this tool, which had helped us be more engaged and also achieve our goals every quarter, that we could help other small businesses as well. So next slide. So what we came up with was 5 steps to an accountability culture. And it starts with clarity around the goal that you're trying to achieve, followed by communication. How are we doing against this goal? How am I doing against my goals? How are you doing against your goals? How are we working together? What's going on, and the transparency around that communication of where we're at on our goals is very important too, because A, it gives us a appreciation for what everyone is doing, and B, it also helps us to identify the blockers faster so that we can resolve them so everyone can move forward. Having everything transparent and visible also creates social accountability. I want to be achieving my goals, because Amy is achieving hers, and I don't want to look like I'm not contributing to the whole team. So social accountability is created when you've got clarity, communication, and transparency. And finally, the last winning ingredient that we found for ourselves was that everyone wins together. And actually, the little snapshot that you saw was a view of everyone winning together. Milestonia, at its heart, just to define what it is, it's goal management software that's simple, easy to use, affordable, designed for small teams, and most of all, fun. So next slide. So you can see the dashboard to the right of the team on the left. That's not us. That's actually one of our original beta companies. But they're celebrating everyone's successes and wins at the end of the week. So this is a check-in meeting at the end of the week. You can see all the green progress circle shows where goals are at. They're celebrating the ones that have been completed. You can see the points that the team has earned and the rewards that they've earned as a result of earning those points. One of the principles that we have is individuals earn points because individuals should be held accountable to their goals and should be congratulated for achieving their work, but we win as a team. So the reward structure is actually designed so that everybody wins together, and that's what creates the camaraderie in Milestonia. Next slide. So we like to say that we're in the business of engaging future-ready teams and creating better business outcomes. So you can see some glimpses of Milestonia. We have these fun welcome gifts that greet people when you log in. We also have really fun gifts for achieving your progress. We have badges, we have leaderboards, but most of all, we have a clear dashboard that shows where everybody is at. Next slide. So this is a diagram to show how Milestonia fits into the overall ecosystem of the team and the company. So we like to say that we enable a company to achieve better productivity and engagement by having the goal management and team engagement software platform at its core. Surrounding the team member, we also have the ability to provide goal coaching and career upskilling within the platform. And then at the bottom, you can see we encourage processes that create an accountability culture, and we'll work with the company to achieve those processes. On the outside, you can see that we'll work with an ecosystem of software providers, executive coaches, and others in order to be able to seamlessly integrate with what a company needs. But at its core is a goal management and team engagement platform, which is a SaaS software tool for $5 to $10 a month per user per month. Next slide. So we believe the market is a big opportunity. There are 7 million companies just in the US alone that have less than 100 employees. And if we took 10% of them that are making over $1 million a year and can afford to invest in a tool like ours, that's about a $2 billion market. We talked about the fact that there are a lot of companies that have this need. So when you take a look at the increase in productivity and the increase in retention and even the increase to the top line, which Harvard Business Review's study showed that high engagement leads to higher productivity and increase in sales, we're looking at a double, maybe even a triple digit ROI. Next slide. So I mentioned before that we're designed for small teams, and we define that as teams that are 50 people or less. That's our sweet spot. And the reason why we're a great tool for smaller companies is because we're simple, we're easy to use, and you don't need an HR or an IT department to onboard your team and get going. Larger companies can afford consultants. They have an HR department, they have an IT department to integrate their software tools and to onboard them and to take it on as a project and roll out the tool. Small companies do not. So we'd like to say that we have enough functionality to replace the tech stack for a smaller company at a fraction of the price. So if you do need a more robust project management tool or a more robust CRM, we will integrate with those tools. But for a smaller company, the functionality that's in Milestonia sometimes is enough, and they don't need a separate project management or performance management or CRM tool. Next slide. So we'd like to say that our success is best told through stories of companies who've used Milestonia successfully. The two case studies that we like to highlight are Sam, who had a software company whose sales were declining 30% year over year. He got his team onto Milestonia, focused on what their North Star goal was and their nearest star goal. Everybody checked in every week. And within 2 quarters, they were achieving revenues of 40% up year over year. With a reduction in expenses, and that had a positive impact on the bottom line. Our story is also told through the eyes of James, who had an agency, who was doing well, but really wanted to get his agency to the next level, used Milestonia to engage his team, and they're achieving 30% year over year growth with a modest investment and positive impact to the bottom line. So we like to say that we're helping companies achieve better business outcomes and do more with what they have. Next slide. But we're most proud of what team members say. They talk about the fact that they've experienced greater productivity and more fun. And executive coaches who are using Milestonia with their clients have said that it creates greater clarity and accountability in the discussions. And a few families that have used us say the same: clarity, frictionless accountability. Next slide. We've started conducting free workshops and events in order to get companies to come and talk with us about different topics that interest them, but they lead to a conversation around Milestonia, because all of these topics have some component of, creating better accountability with your team, and therefore it's a natural segue to Milestonia as a tool to help support those processes. And we'd love to get your feedback if there are any ideas of workshops that you think could lead to Milestonia that we should add to our list. Next slide. And I'll end with our challenge question, but I will say that one of the things that we've been doing is, if anybody is interested in checking out Milestonia, we are onboarding companies for free through the end of the month. It gives us great feedback on our onboarding processes, as well as it gives us a variety of companies to showcase in terms of the types of goals that they enter. And if you know of anybody who wants to work with us, we'd love to talk to them as well. So next slide. And this is our challenge question. Who do you think would be interested in our story, and why? And how do we reach them? Thank you. Thank you for the virtual clap. Oh, and I'll put my information in the chat too, so that you can have it. Awesome.
Great, thank you for presenting, Jen. So at this time, let me introduce you to Mayosha, who will help us to facilitate our discussion.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any
Don,
questions
you
or
may
feedback?
want to step in and moderate because I don't think Mayosha's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Are you gonna moderate, or do you want me to?
Why don't you go ahead? You
Okay.
got
All right. Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, so the way this segment of our presentation work is that if you have, so we're looking to help Jen solve the business challenge that you see in front of you. So you may have some feedback or some suggestions with regards to this question, or you may have some questions to Jen. So what I will ask you to do is either chat in your question or comments or feedback, or you can virtually raise your hand, and so we can sort of use that as a feature to do that. So who will be the first one to start? All right, Melinda.
Excellent presentation, Jen. I really enjoyed it. I had a couple of real quick thoughts, and I was wondering if you're targeting chambers of commerce around the country, if you're targeting project management folks through the project management certification program that they've got, and also sales managers, because they always are managing a group of people. But the biggest thought that I had is, do you have a certification program or something that as you're getting out and you're doing all these talks in front of groups, if you came up with some kind of a certification program which goes along with teaching everybody how to use your tool and being certified, that might be something you want to think about adding.
That's a good idea. We've gotten that feedback, and we would love to work with anyone who could help us do that efficiently. I mean, we have some ideas on how we would do it, but probably we do it badly. And we'd love to have collaborate with people who do know how to do things like that. That would be great.
Okay, so I have Tony, and then after Tony, we'll have Phyllis, Dr. Deb, and Joe in that order. So Tony, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay, great. Jen, great presentation. You actually answered a couple of questions that I had already, which was regarding integration with CRMs. But this is a fundamental question with regards to usage. In the past, I've tried not something exactly like this, but more, performance tracking where every employee or every salesperson had to sit there and put in their numbers each week. And I assume that there's a similar methodology behind behind Milestonia. Mm-hmm. And my question is really more along the lines of how much effort there is, because that's a distractor for smaller companies when they sit there and say, we want to track our people, but how much effort does each person have to put in to actually put their numbers into Milestonia each week?
Yeah, that's a good question. We like to say that it's no more effort than putting it into a spreadsheet, and it's more fun. We do have a couple of sales teams that are using Milestonia, and they're using it in different ways with respect to integrating to their current processes. So we are pretty flexible in terms of how that works. But if you know what your numbers are and you're putting in, Monday I called 10, Tuesday I called 15, and you're jotting down the names of the people you've reached, if you were to put that into a spreadsheet, that's the same amount of time it takes to put it into Milestonia.
Now, can you API into other CRMs like, say, HubSpot or any of the others out there, or is that something you haven't reached yet with any of your customers?
So we haven't built any direct API-driven direct integrations with those tools. We use Zapier
Okay.
in order to communicate with those tools. So we have been putting together Zaps for the sample companies that we're working with when they have a tool that, you know, it's like, oh, good, let's try this. So we've put together a handful of Zaps based on the companies that are using it so far. But we would love to test that out further with companies.
All right, thank you. Next, I believe is Phyllis. Do you have a question or comment? Oh, before, I forgot to mention, if I call on you, if you can just say your name and then what you do, that will help us to kind of introduce yourself as well. All right, go ahead, Phyllis.
Thanks. Good morning. My name's Phyllis Simon. I'm an intellectual property attorney. Jen, this is such a great tool, and I echo some of the concerns that were raised before about, you know, just having so many different software platforms. But one thing that struck me when you were speaking is that this would be a great tool for groups and organizations that maybe have managers who don't have a lot of managerial experience. And so from my background, a couple of things that come in mind are academic research groups. So oftentimes, you know, professors, they never went to management school. So, you know, they just sort of become a manager because they're good at doing research, not necessarily because they're good managers. So maybe try to identify sectors like that. Other, and I could say this because I am an engineer, but, you know, other kind of engineering firms where, you know, people just get in on the ground floor and then they just have to hire more people. And so you just get people who are promoted into leadership positions who maybe don't have a lot of experience or training in management styles. So this would be a great tool to kind of get everyone on board on the same page.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. That's really good insight. Thank you.
Okay, Deb. Your next, Deb.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Jen, very much. A couple of questions. My name is Deb Cohen. I am a former professor of management and human resources, so I know a bit about goal setting. And I've worked in organizations as well, and my specialty is HR and management. So I've got a couple questions for you first about the product itself or the process itself. Are the goals that people set, are they tied into the performance management system of the organization? And is it tied into the compensation system? And then along with that is, so who sets the goals? So it's pretty easy if you can say, I'm going to sell 5 widgets or I'm going to make 5 phone calls, but not all people have goals that are as quantifiable as that. So how do you deal with goals that are more subjective than objective, and how is it then tied into the larger structure of the organization? Because you mentioned smaller companies, ones that might not have an HR department. That doesn't mean that they don't need HR processes, because people want to get paid. And so if you give them rewards, that's great, but gifts and, you know, prizes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, people want to know, is this going to affect my compensation? Not just now, but going forward.
Right, right. So, you know, when we launched, we weren't sure how companies would want to use it. We knew how we used it, but we didn't know how the other companies wanted to use it. We're flexible enough, because we've seen it installed in a number of different places, that if people want to take what's in Milestonia and make it as part of a performance management process, they can, or they don't have to. So there's nothing in the tool that that integrates or would cause a company to use it one way or the other. The rewards that are in Milestonia are considered to be extra, right? It's not necessarily considered to be compensated. It wasn't designed that way. The way that companies use the rewards in Milestonia are like, you know, gift cards, spiffs. We've even had companies give time off as a result of reaching their goals. So it's not considered to be compensation. We do have one insurance company that's on our platform that uses it for their spiffs, but not for their compensation. But they do look to see what's been accomplished each quarter, and they do download. So we have an export to CSV function. They do download it, they create a report, and then they manually however it relates to their compensation system, they do that, but they're not doing that within Milestonia. It wasn't necessarily designed to do that. Let's see, there was another question you had around, was it performance management tools?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So while we can be considered for some organizations, this is their performance management tool. We don't say that we are a performance management tool because we don't have the review check-in process approvals and things like that. But you can get the history for a goal. So when people are updating their goals, you can get a history for a goal, and you can export that, and then you can use that as part of a project performance management program. And then I think the other part of your question was around who's setting the goal and how do you set the goals. And again, we're flexible, so you can really put in whatever goals you want. But for a company that isn't quite sure what their goals should be, we do work with them on a discovery process, and we ask them about North Star and Nearest Star. And what we mean by that is, where does the company want to go in a couple of years? And how do we break that down into what you need everyone to do in the next 90 days? And because it's a team-based product, we'd like to say that everybody has a role to play in that North Star goal. So if the North Star goal is to get to 6,000 customers, everybody on the team in the company has some role in that. And so we help the company articulate what those goals are for each person. And we use the SMART methodology. Specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, time bound, and we'll talk to them about every goal that goes into the project. We also say that the goals don't have to represent everyone's job description, because a job description is something really separate, but this is meant to be something that will really make sure that those big wigs, the wildly important goals, are focused on every quarter to make sure you get there.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, you have. Thank you. A couple of suggestions, if I may.
Sure.
You may want to think about building in some training modules, if you will, about making goals more connected to systems in the organization, because one of the things that especially small companies might find as they grow is that unless it's a little bit like people talked about integrating different software platforms. If you don't integrate to the HR systems like performance management and compensation, you can create some divergencies for yourself. So you may want to think about building in, some training for that. And then the second suggestion would be to consider having, set these goals and then set a few stretch goals, which is, okay, here's what we think we're going to do. And then here are a few a little bit beyond that might take the company even farther or closer to where they want to be, but we really don't know that we can do them, and then have some bigger reward connected to those stretch goals.
Those are great suggestions. And I might, if you didn't mind, I might like to follow up with you offline, because we're not HR professionals at all. And I think this is an area we struggle with. And because we are part of the HR function, I think we really need to understand it better.
Sure.
So thank you for that.
Info in, so feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great suggestion, Deb. So I have next line is Joe, and then I saw Mayosha, and after that, Rosemary and Tony can go up. So Joe, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are, introduce yourself, and then your comments or questions, please.
Yeah, hi. So I'm not Joe. I'm Tom Payne. I'm the business development manager for Mr. Handyman. Joe is the owner, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Jen, fabulous, very, very good presentation today, and something that's very near and dear to my heart. I actually have my master's, my MBA in organizational behavior. So what you're dealing with is a lot of culture and culture shock. One of the key things for the business to succeed is get over, and Deb put it so well, is the divergence and resistance of people being, oh no, another CRM, oh no, another thing to track me, oh no, or anything. And as I was listening to that, the chats were kind of stealing my thunder with, I think nonprofits would be an excellent area. Small business associations would be another one. And I think you said this in your presentations, where a lot of small businesses don't know what they don't know. So I think to tie it in as a team building is an excellent way. A question I had is how how compatible is it to the industry? And the reason I add that you're presenting to. So for example, I'm in the trades, I'm in contracting. At the end, people are used to kind of end of year bonuses or whatever the case. So if you can do, we're all in this together and have an annual goal and like kind of little quarterly checkups or whatever. And again, it doesn't have to, it could be time off or whatever it is, however you can tailor it to that particular business. I think that would definitely help you grow. But I think for any fundraising business, nonprofits was a fantastic, suggestion that someone put on chat, because it's all about fundraising. But I would also, I wouldn't shy away from the trades for a couple reasons, because a lot of people in the trades, and again, I can say this because I'm in the trades, and like the intellectual property attorney said, is an engineer. A lot of people go into the trades because they know how to fix fences, they know how to do plumbing, but they don't know how to manage people. It's just what they're also saying. So I think maybe if you get to the trade industry, it might be enticing to them, because they'll say, okay, we know if we have X amount of sales, we get this bonus. But if we have X amount of sales, I can get an extra couple of days to take my family on a vacation or whatever. I think if you can tailor it and massage it to that individual's business, trade or industry, I think that would definitely help. But yes, if you're, and again, your target industry, 5 to 50, if that's your sweet spot for number of employees, hopefully, knock on wood, the small family run business, whether it's a widget store or a small restaurant, I think that would be a good app too. So
that's great. And Tom, I might want to follow up with you offline too, because we've struggled a little bit with the trades. We've had a couple companies that have tried it, but I think that where we struggle is how to fit into their processes, because they're not always at their desk. And so, I would love more examples of how companies can make it work, because I agree with you that that they could use some team engagement as well if they are actually a team. So
yeah, please feel free to reach out. No problem.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Mayosha, you're here.
I am here, yes.
Okay, would you like to take over the moderator role from now on, from here on out?
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I am the moderator.
Okay.
I forgot I was stepping
You could
in.
ask your question and then you can help us moderate.
Yes. I forgot I was stepping in. So yeah, a great presentation. I mean, I have a childcare center and I'm always looking for staff, and I see that you're doing employees of 2 to 50. So tell me a little bit about your pricing, and do you just do the onboarding process, or do you just do the recruitment, go out there and find people?
Yeah. So our pricing is $5 to $10 per user per month. It depends on the size of team. It's an interesting question about how we work with companies, because initially we had thought, oh, we'll just do an initial training and go. And what we're finding is what Deb brought up, which is sometimes companies, if they have to change their processes, or they don't know they need to change their processes, and we need to help them do that. And then we need to follow up to see how it's going, because behavior change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And so what we've been doing is we've been checking in with companies periodically to see how their processes are going. And what we find is that if you've got a weekly meeting, the likelihood of getting adopted and having a successful process is a lot higher than if you're not having a weekly meeting with your team. So we have been helping companies to implement and also, figure out what their goals should be. As Deb pointed out, sometimes people aren't really quite sure how to articulate their goals, and we've been helping companies with that.
So basically what you're doing is more like coaching on hiring the right people for the certain roles versus really going out there and doing the HR of hiring people. Am I understanding that correctly?
Well, so we don't actually help a company build their team, if that's what you mean. we're
You don't do
helping
the
them.
HR. You don't do the HR part. You don't do the
We don't, no, we're not an outsourcing
It's the
HR.
coaching.
We're a tool to help reinforce an accountability process. So,
Okay.
so we might talk to a company about how do you break down that North Star goal into something that's achievable, and it might include hiring somebody, but we would not necessarily be advising them around how to run their business. It would just be, how do we help enable the achievement of their goals?
So, okay, great. Okay.
So Maisha, the order I have right now is Rosemary, Tony, and Deb.
Okay, Rosemary. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
So Jen, first, great presentation. Thank you for sharing so enthusiastically the ideas behind your business and how well you're doing so far. My comments, I think I can hit both of your challenge questions. Have you reached out? I know that you guys are not HR professionals, but those of you who join us every week will hear a familiar strain. Have you reached out to SHRM or one of the local SHRM chapters? And if so, have you gotten any response from them?
So we started with trying to get to SHRM nationally, and I think that our challenge is that a lot of the companies that are participating in SHRM nationally are not our target. Our target really is those smaller companies. The regional SHRMs, it's interesting that you bring that up, because that was brought up to me in a meeting on Monday. They said, go to the, and I didn't realize that they existed. So if you can help us navigate that and figure out how to get to the local SHRMs, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and in addition to that, SHRM launched about 2 years ago a startup support entity called Paragon Labs. And I think you guys would fit really well into their program, because they are looking for startups that help with their mission of improving the workplace for everyone. So what I can do is I can introduce you to some of the folks over at Paragon Labs. And what I would recommend, because I don't really have any ins, is if you go to the SHRM website, they'll show you the local, are you located here in the DMV?
No, I'm in the San Jose Bay Area.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a really big SHRM chapter there. But all you have to do is go to the SHRM website and find the chapter there. And they're always looking for good companies to get involved with.
Great.
So I can make that email introduction for Paragon Labs, and they do a lot for the startups. We've done a lot with them ourselves.
That would be fantastic. I would appreciate that.
Yeah. The other question I have for you is, because I didn't see a lot of it in your presentation, who would you say your competition is, and how do you describe your unique value prop versus those competition?
Yeah, great question. So our competition typically tends to be a lot of the other software tools that were on that slide, where I explained that we replace the tech stack at an affordable price. You know, if a company can use Milestonia and doesn't need to have a separate manage things in a project management tool and a performance management tool and a rewards management tool, then we're going to save them money. What we find is the biggest barrier, I guess, to adoption is really more what Tony talked about earlier, which is we're yet another tool. Another tool. Can we sustain adopting yet another tool? And I think that it is to a certain extent substitutes, but it's also to a certain extent ease of adoption that becomes our barrier to entry.
Great, thanks. And I would keep working with coaches as well, especially corporate coaches that are working on developing mission and vision. Mm-hmm. They can bring you in after they finish their work. Mm-hmm. And you can help them gamify their adaptation of that through the companies.
Yeah.
And the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. Next we have Tony, and after Tony, we have Deb and John.
Okay, so I'm going to be real quick with this, Jen. You've heard the term see a need, fill a need.
Yeah.
You need to focus and tailor your solution specifically to an area that you may or may not even thought of, and that is the corporate responsibility in corporations. Here's why. You're not going to fit easily into HR. You've kind of already explained that you had difficulty there. However, every major corporation and even a lot of smaller companies have a corporate responsibility office. And while it's not been highly acknowledged during COVID, it is becoming a larger segment of every major corporation, and even smaller businesses are trying to sit there and include it into their offices. The problem is they have to pay someone to manage it. Your solution fits perfectly into a self-managed acknowledgement for all the employees who do volunteer work to sit there and put in their hours and then have it automatically acknowledged, not just to leadership, but to the rest of the organization. Now, you may only get in a major corporation or even a company 5 to 10, maybe 15% of the people who actually engage, but your solution fits into that so that the corporate responsibility office now has their app to track and acknowledge people's efforts that they can sit there and have fun with, and sit there and give gifts from the company for efforts that they make, because a lot of companies will give rewards for people who do a lot of volunteer work. Here's the best part. Those offices are public, which means you can sit there and just call information or look up online and get the contact information, whoever the compliance officer is for the corporate responsibility office. So it's not a heavy lift to go out and get that information and get those contacts. So you or your team can sit there and reach out to a handful each day. I'll talk to you offline about ones that I know personally, just to give you, to help you with an introduction. But the more I was thinking about it, your solution fits right with them, because it's not necessarily integrated into the big HR department, but that whole office is segregated from the rest of the company. And they have their own little environment that may link to the office's wiki or to the office's internal systems, but they don't have any real tracking. I think that's where your advantage is and where your niche is. And it fits perfectly.
Interesting. Yeah, and sometimes companies find product market fit by going really narrow and branding around it and spreading that way, as opposed to trying to be general, which is how we started. But that's a really good point.
Thank you. Thanks, Tony. And next, the last four is Deb, John, Melinda, and then finally Donnell, because we are almost out of time. So if you have any more questions, if I missed anybody, if you don't mind putting it in the chat box, and I guess we can reach out to you, Jen, directly.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Feedback, and we'll be sending you the chat anyway, so you have all of the information. So Deb.
Thanks. I don't have any more questions. Please go on to the next. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. John. Joe McCabe.
I already asked. I'm Tom. I already did that.
Super.
No more questions.
Okay, thanks. I just saw your hand raised. That's okay. And Melinda?
First question I wanted to ask you is, since you mentioned you only charge $5 to $10 for the tool, how do you make money? But I also wanted to ask, are you partnering with any other companies that would be good partners for you? And that might be a separate conversation. And then the last thought I just wanted to leave there for you is, a lot of clubs need the project management. They don't have the tools, and they have people that are in charge of committees and all sorts of stuff. So you could almost start going on to Meetup and looking and finding groups. But there are one big club that I'll tell you about is the Garden Club. And there's the National Garden Club on a national, international basis, and it goes down to a regional basis, down to a state basis, and down to local clubs. And they all have committees. And this would be a great tool for organizations like that, that are national and international organizations, but they go down to the club level and they have projects and community service and a lot of other things that they do. But wanted to find out how you make money too. Thank you.
Well, so $5 to $10 per user per month. So the average, company might be anywhere between $1,500 to $3,000 a year. So, it's not a lot when when you're spending a lot of time onboarding companies, I think that's the part we're trying to figure out is how can we do that more scalably and faster with less less of our time, because that won't pay out because we weren't planning to charge consulting fees, but you know, that is how we're planning to make money is from the SaaS software subscription. So,
Thank you.
and I would say that there have been so many great suggestions for organizations and groups that might want to try it. If you know of people in those groups or, you know, please have them email me. We'd love to onboard them and just see how they use it, because that's going to help us understand whether it's a good fit or not. So I think, you know, nonprofits, sales managers, small business associations. I mean, those are all really great inroads to try and find our target audience. I would love introductions, and we can see if we can try and make that work. We'd be open to that.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Melinda. And then we have a wonderful final question from Donnell Johns.
I'm gonna give you a recommendation before my final question.
Okay.
I recommend that you partner with coaches, especially executive coaches, that can bring your tool into their organization and then help you onboard that tool as something that they can use in addition to what they use as far as coaching tools. Goal achievement and goal management is something that's huge, you know, in the coaching arena. And so you may want to, you know, partner with organizations that train up coaches and maybe white label a tool for their organization, or just use it as part of their tool in some type of incentive for them bringing it into an organization.
That's great.
But my final question is, what can our organization do for you?
You know, introductions would be awesome. I think you guys have some really fantastic ideas for things we can try that we haven't tried already. And I would just love introductions to any folks that we should be onboarding so that we can check it out and pressure test some of those ideas. Really, really appreciate everyone's creativity.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming out. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me to your community. I appreciate it very much.
No,
I'm on the app, the Fairfax.
Right.
1 Million Cups.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to John Yu. You have a great day, and thank you for presenting at 1 Million Cups.
Great, thank you.
All right. I want to thank everyone for another productive and highly stimulating discussion. Next week, we have a company called Sarge Fit. It's a multifunctional exercise system. As you know, spring is already here, and all of us are trying to lose those extra pounds that we gained in the winter. And so I think this presentation will be a very, very good one. All right, next slide. All right, so we have a schedule for a presenter, March as well as April. As you can see, there's a lot of open spots. So if you are a business owner, startup, or if you know anyone that you think can benefit from presenting, as you've seen today, there's a lot of people are here, experts that can provide feedback and suggestions. And so, you know, one brain, 20+ brain is much better than one brain. And so please get the word out and ask anyone that you know are having some business challenge, or if not just doesn't have to be a business challenge. They're sort of pivoting from their business. Ask them to go to 1 Million Cups Fairfax and apply.
Jen, I was going to say, Jen, if you had an enjoyable experience today, share with your colleagues your experience today and invite them to apply for our group. And we'd love to, as long as they're early risers and don't mind getting up before the sun rises, we'd love to have them.
Right. Next slide. All right. So at this time, there are a bunch of events that are coming up in our community. So let me turn this over to Russ, and if you can sort of.
Actually, Russ asked me to step in for him. He had to leave. He had a
Okay.
meeting this morning.
All right.
On
ahead.
Wednesday, March 17th, which is today at 12 o'clock, the Virginia SBDC is doing a program on local SEO and social media marketing. On Friday, March 19th, the chamber is doing, and I'm just looking to see which chamber it is, a chamber 101 on membership orientation. I think this might be the Central Fairfax chamber. And on March 23rd, the Dulles chamber is doing what to look for in business. And this is the session will review and discuss key elements to consider when you're thinking about working with and hiring a coach. Karen, are you still on the call? Do you have anything that you would like to announce?
She's not on.
Okay, does anybody else have anything that they'd like to announce that's coming up? I turn it back to you, John.
Right. So I have something, if I may. Marnie Miller, as you know, she launched her, she presented to our group not too long ago. She recently launched her YouTube channel. Way to go, Marnie. If you want to share the link to your YouTube channel, and if everyone can support her by subscribing, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, John. I did put it into the chat. I can add it again.
Right.
So I appreciate it, and I saw you subscribe. So thank you so much. I'm very nervously excited and glad to be held accountable.
That's awesome. All right.
She put the link in the chat.
And I just want to say thank you. Again, I'm sorry I was on mute earlier. I will spread the word that you guys are an awesome group and you were well worth waking up for.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to sign off now. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. All right. So as you all know, entrepreneurship is a journey, and 1 Million Cups is a part of that journey where we come together as fellow entrepreneurs and help each other to overcome those challenges. And I hope today's meeting was productive for you and you've got some takeaways, and I hope you can join us next week. Is there next slide? All right. So we're at the end of our meeting this morning. Again, thank you again for joining. Thank you. Thanks to the Kauffman Foundation to make this possible. And if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship, you can go to Kauffman Foundation website and you can learn more about it. And with that, I believe that's our last slide. And thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Don't forget to save the chat.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.